Chelsea got their first win of the season, while Everton will have to wait for theirs. And is Nunez brace a sign of things to come for Liverpool? We will cover all of this and more on the supporters section. Grab your scarves. We start right now. Welcome into the supporters section. I am Brandon Pasek, and this is episode 78 of the supporters section podcast. Before we get started, make sure you drop a like for us and subscribe if you have not already. We just hit 100 subscribers recently and want to get up to 1,000 next, so help us get there. I do have my best friend here with me, Steven Curl. Steve, nice to see you. What are you wearing today?
Oh yes, I'm wearing a pastime, a Dele Alli 2019-2020. This was our Europa Conference League kit that we wore, I think, in the first year the tournament existed. So a little bit of a throwback, a Dele Alli Gareth Bale team. That was so fun. That was just fun to watch.
Some feel-good moments, I'm sure. Not going out of that tournament, but
no.
Some feel-good moments nonetheless. I actually have that same jersey because I found it at a Ross.
I remember that.
Authentic for very cheap, which was amazing. Ross has the steal sometimes. This is the Atlanta United 2019-20 kit, the year after we won the MLS Cup. I'm feeling good. It has Joseph on the back, but I'm feeling pretty good after Atlanta United's last two games, winning at Seattle, winning at home against Nashville. Hopefully with this last stretch, we play Cincinnati this week. Hopefully we'll keep it rolling. But we'll get to Atlanta United at the end. You know how we like to do on the supporter section podcast. We like to give our golden scarf out every week. It goes to the person, team, thing, or whatever we thought deserved some praise from the previous week. Steve, who are you giving it to this week?
Yes, mine has to go to Darwin Nunez for the 2 late goals for Liverpool. Off the bench, mind you. Liverpool is filled with a bunch of quality attacking players, so this is a make or break season for Darwin Nunez, to say the least, and he came up huge in Liverpool's game against Newcastle. Amazing goals too. They're just finished very well, looked confident, so it was good to see him finally maybe stepping into his own and scoring some goals.
Yeah, and he always looked decent last year, getting in good positions to score but not putting them away. He showed a lot of confidence at St. James Park this weekend. I'm going to give mine to Fulham just in general for having that dog in them. Showed a lot of fight away against Arsenal at the Emirates. They really took the game to them for most of the game, but they did score in the first minute, which always helps. They did allow a penalty in the 70th minute, and then 2 minutes later an Nketiah goal, so then they were down 2-1. If that wasn't enough, they got a red card in the 83rd minute. I think it was a second yellow. But they didn't even give up then. João Palhinha scored from a corner in the 87th minute, and then they had to hang on for dear life during Arsenal's 10-minute onslaught, which was pretty crazy watching the highlights back. Good for Fulham. They're a good team this year. The expectations, I think people thought they would fall off after last year's performance, and especially selling Mitrovic, not really making their team a lot better this offseason. So good for them. They've been hanging in a lot of the games this year. Transfer talk. I'm not going to highlight any transfers this week, but a notification for all of you listeners and for us, honestly. The Premier League will close this Friday, September 1st at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So your team might be trying to sign somebody. I don't know. A lot of people have already done their business, and good teams usually do their business earlier in the transfer window. But will we see Mo Salah leave? Will Man City sign another player? There's a lot of rumors going around right now, so we'll be sure to update you guys on any crazy things that happen next week's pod. Let's jump into Premier League match week 3. Let's start with Chelsea 3, Luton Town 0. Steve, how did this one go down?
Yeah, as you would expect, it was a mismatch on the field as well as in the books. Chelsea did walk away from this one with a 3-0 victory. Raheem Sterling, it was really his show, just gliding through the field, whether it be the opponent's box in the midfield, on the wing, wherever it was. He scored 2 goals and assisted. Nicholas Jackson also got on the score sheet as well, so he opens up his Chelsea account, and that was something that was weighing on him. You could just tell. So it was good for him to get his first goal. However, I will say that although Chelsea won 3-0, Luton had their chances, and there was a few moments from this Chelsea team, especially in the back, that I noticed they should not have afforded Luton as many chances as they did. I'd give Luton maybe they had a solid 2.5, maybe 3 chances if I'm being very generous that they really had against Chelsea. One that sticks out to me was in the 60th minute. At that point, the game was only 1-0 Chelsea, and kind of had an open look on goal, broke down Chelsea's defense, and Sanchez came up with a pretty good save. If that goes in, like if they have finishing quality, which if and shoulds buts whatever it is, but if that ball goes into the back of the net, then it's a 1-1 game in the 60th minute. I mean, I don't know. It was again really Raheem Sterling's show. The rest of the Chelsea team didn't look too imaginative, in my opinion. So, but at the end of the day, Chelsea's not going to care. It's a 3-0 victory. It's their first of the season. They did what they were supposed to do. They beat a team by 3 goals. Their striker got a goal. So to them, it was a great game. But I'm just thinking for opponents that are a little bit more difficult, they better start tidying things up in the back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They've had a lot of overhaul. We've covered it last year and even a little bit this year. Still buying players. I think they bought 5 this offseason. They're linked with more. It's just crazy, this Chelsea squad. But with their new signings, I know they had Sterling last year, but Nicholas Jackson as well. Like, can Poch get them to their best? Can Poch get Sterling back to their best? I think Sterling's been their best player this year so far. Poch has been quoted saying Nicholas Jackson is going to be a top 3 striker in the world. Like, he's going to be one of the best in the world. I've really yet to see that, but Poch has played with, coached Harry Kane, Son, some good players at PSG. like he's seen a lot of football in his time. So what do you think about this Chelsea team and Poch hopefully getting the best out of them? Do you think he can do it? He's already showing, glimpses with Sterling, Nicholas Jackson scoring his goal. What are your thoughts?
It's confusing, really, because Chelsea is a team, by all indications of how they've operated over the past under the Bowley regime, of wanting results now. Poch has always been considered to be a journeyman kind of a coach, in my opinion, and you saw what he was able to do with a finished product at PSG, and it wasn't much, and he got the sack. Interesting point about Nicholas Jackson. He really reminds me of a Tammy Abraham, for likeness of this guy has a lot of talent, raw talent. He has the potential to be good and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, at Chelsea, they need goals. They need goals now. And Nicholas Jackson got his goal, but again, it was a fortunate deflection that kind of fell to him off a Sterling pass, and it was against Luton Town, so the pressure's going to be on. You can say all the lip service you want to kind of, if Poch, they were going to always win this game, but if they didn't, it would have been wild. Yeah. Nicholas Jackson, is he the guy to put Chelsea in the top 4 this year? I don't know. I personally don't think so. But Sterling, if he continues to control the games like he has been doing and playing with that confidence that we've seen at Man City before, I think they're going to be okay. But Nicholas Jackson, I don't know. That's another point about the deadline. Do they move for somebody?
Well, it's crazy because we talked, I think it might have been last week or 2 weeks ago now. We're like, does Chelsea need to sign another player? Like, do they need to sign a real striker? Nicholas Jackson is almost like a winger because he's so fast. But if you're playing as a sole 9, like, speed is not going to really help you out that much, especially when teams like Luton are going to sit back and you're not going to have that much space to run in behind. So I think it'll help them throughout the year. He'll get his goals from, sprinting faster than anybody else. But like we saw with Mudryk's supposedly the fastest person in the league, and he looks way off of it. You need a lot more than just speed to succeed, especially at the 9 position. Speed to succeed. I might get that tattooed on me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it'd be crazy to say that they need to sign another player, but I don't think Nicholas Jackson is going to be that guy for them. I just don't see it yet. Even with Nunez, you could tell there's a player in there, even from the jump last year. Yeah, he didn't perform as well as he could have, but already this year with the brace, Nicholas Jackson needs to start start firing for Chelsea if we're going to even start thinking about him in the same realm, and honestly for himself before his role is taken by another $100 million signing, right?
Yeah. And that's one more quick thing. I think the difference between, like, say, Nunez at Liverpool and Chelsea, it's Klopp has patience, I believe, with some players. He might drop you. You might go to the bench, but usually you'll see that playing time. I feel like Chelsea is almost managed by Todd Bowley as opposed to the manager that they have in position. So if they're not scoring goals, is it really up to, like, Poch? Yes, he's the manager and he'll make his decisions and figure things out. But at the same time, pressure is way more heavy, I think, on this Chelsea team than on, let's say, a Liverpool. Even though Chelsea's won the Champions League recently, which is so crazy. But this pressure is just something we've seen sack 40 million purchased coaches in Graham Potter and other signings that have just arrived at the club. So I hope the best for Nicholas Jackson, but also, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't score too many goals in La Liga when they bought him, did he? I think it was like around like yeah, I know
I'm
it
not
wasn't.
entirely sure.
I think it was like maybe like 13, 14 goals. It was not more than
Yeah.
that. So,
He was a good player when they bought him. They took, along with just rating Brighton's playing squad and their coaching squad, they took their player recruitment guy, I think, as well. So like I don't know if he's head of scouting or something like that. So I guess now that this guy has a ton of money, he's scouting or whatever at a higher level. And so maybe all of this will come together and Chelsea will win the Premier League and then they'll be the best team ever and go and win for the next 8 years. Maybe that's the future. I just don't see that happening. But
yeah.
we'll leave that there because I think we could talk about Chelsea's crazy squad for a long time. For Luton, though, Steve, who does Luton really stand a chance against this season? And how many points do you think they will get?
Listen, they have a goal, albeit a
They have a
penalty.
goal.
But it's a long season. We all know that. But it looks a little rough for them right now. But who knows? Maybe they rattle off a draw. A draw is momentum to a team that just gets promoted to the Premier League for the first time in as many years that it's been for them. I think it's their first year in the Premier League, if I'm not even mistaken. So at the end of the day, Luton's just happy to be here, and they just need to play their football. They don't have any pressure of huge money signings. But they're just looking to come in, have some identity, play good football. And listen, if you get outplayed by a Man City, a Liverpool, a Chelsea, an Arsenal, like that's just gonna happen. Don't worry about that. And who knows? Maybe come January, they're sitting at 17, and that's something. That's something to work with. So, but if you were to actually make me give you an answer, I'd give them a 1% chance of staying up.
Yeah, I think the people that they have a chance against are the ones that they're fighting at the bottom. You know, a handful of like 4 or 5 teams, and then out of that, how many points are they going to get? We'll see. But they haven't played a home game yet. I think they play one this weekend, so that'll be big for them. Again, home form is going to be big for the teams that are at the bottom. Two teams that are also projected to be at the bottom: Everton and Wolves. Everton lost at home 0-1. Steve wanted me to mention that Wolves were wearing their Portugal jerseys as they recruit heavily in Portugal. I feel like they have a Portuguese jersey or like themed jersey every year. It's pretty funny and just like blatant at this point. But it felt like this game was played in late April with both teams hovering near the relegation line. It was very fun. It was electric, actually, as poor as these teams seemingly are. I'd say they are. Both teams exchanged blows the entire game in forms of goals ruled out for offside. The one from Silva was in the 57th minute. The other one from Decore was in the 78th minute. The goal did finally come from a header from a substitute in the 87th minute off of a beautiful ball from Neto. But the player of the game has to go to the Wolves keeper, Saw, right, Steve?
Oh my gosh, he was absolutely incredible. Saw had, I believe he had 7 saves that game. And Pickford had a couple good saves of his own, to be fair. But there was a specific moment in, it was late in the second half. Decore had a weird ball come in kind of near like his chest or belly area, honestly, puts his head down on it, awkward ball. Saw's already reacting. He's falling into the goal, saves it, puts the ball over the cross. It was absolutely incredible, and it was save after save that he was making, which was just God. It was just winding Everton up. But yeah, he had a fantastic game. 7 saves. You get 7 shots on target, and you have the other guy save every single one. And I mean, it just worked out. Those teams, I think the game deserved a draw, and Saw just edged out Pickford on the day. And the goal, there's nothing that Pickford could really do on it. It was just the guy was like 6'5" in the box and just towered over everybody and scored with the header. But yeah, Saw was class today.
Yeah, maybe worthy of a golden scarf. Might have overlooked him there. But the sad part about this game is that Everton has the honor of being the only team in the league without a goal after 3 matches. How hot, or maybe warm, or however you want to put it, Steve, is that seat under Sean Dyche's butt at Goodison?
Yeah, right when the full-time whistle blew, you could hear the boos echo around Goodison kind of right away. And we're 3 games into the season. Seems like just last spring they were singing his praises. So, I mean, the seat warms up pretty quick. Definitely quicker than your car seat heater. So I'd say it's getting pretty warm. I don't know who Everton have next. I think it might be a Sheffield. Potentially. But anyways, it's getting pretty warm, and that's just the way it goes, especially early in the season. I feel like a ton of coaches get sacked in the first like 2 months of the season. So you need to start getting some results. You need to start scoring a goal. No goals in the first 3 games. Wolves are poor. So I say if he doesn't score, if Everton are goalless at the end of these next 2 games, if they don't score a goal in the first 5 games of the season, I think that's my like they literally might just fire Sean Dyche. But we'll see. We'll see. But if they don't score coming up here, it's gonna be rough.
It is. They do play Sheffield this week, which we will talk about in a minute. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I think by the second international break, it usually is. That's when a lot of coaches get fired. We have the first one coming up here next week, maybe. I think it might be next week or in 2 weeks. So I think they'll give him a little bit more time, definitely to the second international break, I think. But, dude, but can you blame him? They didn't really invest in the offseason that well. They've had a couple injuries, unfortunately. Damari Gray, I saw, was linked to Saudi, which is crazy. If they lost Damari Gray, he's like the only one that can score on their team. So
yeah, they brought
that's
in
not a good idea.
They brought in backup striker Dan Juma who was on loan at Tottenham last year. He had a couple like signs of brilliance, and Doucouré also is way more creative than I remembered him. Like they had the pressure on, some chances, they just couldn't finish. And I'm looking at their future fixtures. It's Sheffield, Arsenal, and Brentford. I mean, that's no easy schedule.
It's not. Every game is tough, though. Every game is tough. I know we say it all the time, but that is definitely not easy. Sheffield, you got to circle that one. And then is the Brentford game at home?
The Brentford game is away. It goes Sheffield away, Arsenal at home, Brentford away.
Arsenal, was it away or at home that Sean Dyche's first game last year that they got a point?
That's true.
Or did they win? They beat him 1-0? What was that result? Something crazy like that.
I'll get back to you on it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on then. Bournemouth 0, Tottenham 2. James Maddison opened up his Tottenham account with his first goal and great build-up play, honestly, from the midfield duo of Bissouma and Sarr. Love seeing Sarr, after sort of being written off last year, come into his own this year under Postecoglou. It's been really nice. And Bissouma showing that he is the Brighton player, the prospect that he once was. He is looking ridiculously good. Richarlison, I'm glad you put this in here. Still doesn't get on the score sheet as he just really cannot put it in the back of the net. He was like this for Everton. Still promising, though. It's crazy that he gets game time for Brazil, honestly. I think he's always in pretty good positions, but just cannot put it in the back of the net. He's a little cursed right now, so hopefully he'll work his way out of that maybe. But Kulusevski does get the late goal. to go up 2-0 after Udogie and Son combined for a nice give and go. I think that was in the 70-something minute, if I'm not mistaken. It was just a good game overall. I think it was a fair game. Tottenham did deserve the 2-0 result. Definitely the win. Bournemouth played pretty well, but Tottenham was just too much on the day, and Postecoglou really getting this team ticking after 3 games. That's now back-to-back clean sheets with 6 goals in 3 games. None of those, I need to mention this, have come from Son or Richarlison. So you can only imagine once they start clicking, what does that look like? What does this team look like? Definitely missing Kane a little bit, I'm sure, but it hasn't really come into play yet. I just like to imagine if Kane was in Richarlison's position, how many goals he would have scored already. But we don't need to talk about that. No more Kane talk here. But Burnley is up next before the international break. And this is really exactly how Tottenham players would want the season to go. Maybe even beating Brentford on the first day would have been better. But with, 7 points now from the first 3 games, what has worked well so far for Spurs, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it earlier with Basuma and Sarr in that midfield. That easily has to be the number one difference from this team. If I were to be overreacting, comparing this team to last year's team, there's a midfield. There's a midfield in general. I'm not even talking about Maddison, who, again, is just he progresses the ball forward so well, and he can even shield the ball and kind of lay it off a little bit as well as at the same time too. And you bring in guys like Basuma, who practically didn't even really play last year consistently, or Sarr, or Maddison. So you bring 3 midfielders, honestly, transplant them into the midfield, and it's just been an engine. This past game specifically, you see Basuma just hold up ball so well, pass it off to Sarr. Sarr just play a splitting pass to Maddison, finished one time. And that's just something that Tottenham fans never saw last year. It was Kane. It was always Kane scoring goals. And this team had to change if Harry Kane was to leave. And Postecoglou seems like he's had this in place. If Kane stayed or not, this identity was going to be put in place. And Kane leaving, you could argue, has helped that come to fruition quicker. So we'll see. I'm not on the we're gonna finish top 4, top 6 even train. We've had a lighter schedule compared to some other teams to start off the year. But with Burnley next and then going into the international break, it's perfect. I feel so good about this team moving forward. Maybe we make a little buzz at the deadline, but the midfield has been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get your points where you can take them. You can only play the opponent in front of you as well. So if you're getting points, you guys haven't dropped points at all. So great start to the season. I'm sure you'll take care of Burnley. They weren't that hard. Coming from an Aston Villa perspective, they weren't great. And actually, I'm very worried that they're overhyped now after watching them play. They might figure it out, but it's going to be a long season for them as well. But yeah, you're completely right. This Spurs team, the midfield is what we were crying out for last year. It's just so bad. So bad, not working well together. The style of play also didn't help at all. I saw, what's his name? The holding midfielder.
Højbjerg?
I saw him linked away to maybe Liverpool today or something crazy. But now he's not even playing, and he was like a stalwart in that midfield. But like you see how good and free you guys are with maybe a more mobile midfield. I think Sarr, Basuma, definitely Maddison. They're just a little bit more creative, a little bit more active in that space. I think Højbjerg will get some playing time this year because he is a tough player. I think he's decent. But, the midfield has really, really turned up for Spurs. You sort of mentioned how high is the ceiling. I won't make you answer it because you said, I don't know if we'll get top 4. But, look, the season is long. Injuries come, you're right, like things happen throughout the season. But I think I predicted that you guys would win a cup trophy this year. And I think this team, from what I'm seeing so far, it could happen. It really, really could. They're good. They're fun to watch. They're interesting. They're open at times. But, like, they're great. I think everybody's sort of refreshed with watching this new Tottenham team. Any other comments, Steve?
No, I'll even give a shout out to Adogi, our left back that was on loan
That's
last
good.
year. He's played really solid as well. Right back, we're still kind of interchanging Poro and Emerson, but I even think with how good and mobile and fit our midfield is, it takes the pressure off those outside backs as well with Basuma and Sar tracking back. So it's working so far. It's working.
Yeah.
We'll see. I feel like
Hopefully,
Anakin Skywalker right now, my little like pod racer going, "It's working." So we'll see. We'll see if it lasts.
speaking of Star Wars, have you watched any Ahsoka yet?
I haven't yet. No. I know. I know.
You need to catch up. You need to catch up. New episode tomorrow. Okay, back to the football. Newcastle lost to Liverpool at home, 1-2. Newcastle had not beat Liverpool since 2015, and obviously they did not here, but they didn't really have an excuse not to on the day. Everything was set up for them to win the game. The game did start very hot. And so much did go wrong for Liverpool. An early Trent yellow card, a terrible error by Trent that led to the Gordon's goal in the 25th minute, and just 3 minutes later, Virgil van Dijk received a red card in the 28th minute for a foul on Isaac. Steve, there's been a lot of controversy over this red card. Was it? Was it not? I mean, Van Dijk was very, very heated about it. On the face of it, it doesn't really seem like your normal red card. Like crazy high tackle, whatever it is. But do you think the referee got it right?
I do. I really do. I mean, it's that classic. Again, like you said, there wasn't any endangerment of the player. It wasn't the harshness of the tackle. It was just denying of a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity. And I think Isak was in. And Virgil van Dijk, an experienced defender like himself, I mean, he knows where he is on the field. At least he should know where he is on the field. And spur of the moment, made the challenge. You know, maybe 30% of the time it's not called, but I thought there wasn't too much controversy in my head. It's you know the situation. You know where you put yourself in the discretion of the referee in that moment, and it's almost like a red card on principle. Like, what are you doing, Van Dyke? So yeah, I thought he was in on goal. Whether he would have scored, we'll never know. But yeah, Van Dyke shown the red there. I think it was the right decision by the ref.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I was really confused because I thought he won the ball, but on the replay, he definitely comes just straight through him. I think maybe fouls him twice. He like steps on him and then kicks through him. It's not great play from Van Dijk, especially knowing that it's just him and Isak headed towards his goal. Yeah, I think it's a red card. It's one of those weird ones though. Like I said, it on the face of it doesn't really seem like your normal red card, but I guess according to the book, especially, it is a red card. So, any Liverpool fans, let us know your thoughts in the comment. I could see it not be given. Honestly, I could have seen it just been like a yellow, and then they just pick up, and I don't think anybody's pissed about it. I think you just move on. But the fact that it was red was more controversial. I don't know. It goes like that sometimes. But Allison, I mean, what a goalkeeper. I think he had the best like one-on-one save percentage last year or something like that. And he's just phenomenal. I mean, top 2, top 3 goalkeeper in the league. He had an amazing save in the 36th minute from Almiron's shot. And this save ultimately kept Liverpool in the game. Newcastle did end up having some other chances. The best one, again, was from Almiron, a shot that hit off the post and out. But they didn't really capitalize on any of their other chances. I think they had like 20-something shots. I think 8 on target from what I remember reading. But just couldn't do enough on the day. Liverpool's defense was pretty astute. Jota plays a ball off the backside of Sven Botman that takes a lucky bounce into the Nunez path. And Nunez, the guy we mentioned a couple times this podcast, takes his chance very, very well. So Liverpool ties the game 1-1 in the 81st minute. Very lucky goal. Let's put it there. The shot going in wasn't lucky. Very good shot, but the way the ball got to him was very weird. But Liverpool, there's that fight. There's that dog. Like, that's that Klopp mentality. I can only like attribute that to Klopp and like that German, like, I don't know, something about that aura, right? And then Salah shines because he is that dude. Plays a sweet ball through to Nunez in the 93rd minute, who takes his chance from, I think, almost the exact same spot the first goal he shot the first goal from, and puts it away just as confidently, even more so. 2-1 Liverpool, and that's how the game finished. Anything else to add to that, Steve?
God, I just loved his goal celebrations. Just he was doing the ears, he was blowing kisses to the Newcastle fans. I loved the confidence. Him enjoying his football was just super cool to see. And Klopp, like you said, he has that. He's almost angry on the sideline when they're scoring. His mouth is like sideways. He's like, yeah. So it's cool to see Klopp so passionate and Liverpool kind of regaining their little swagger back.
Yeah, Klopp can be a lot sometimes, and maybe not my taste, but I do like to see the intensity that he brings,
Yeah.
and Liverpool sort of get around him like that. Steve, was this a Newcastle loss or a Liverpool win?
I'll just say yes. Because
Okay.
I mean I think it was, if I had to pick one or the other, it's a Liverpool win, but Newcastle at home, St. James Park, you can't lose that game. You cannot drop those points. It's such a bad look, especially coming off the loss from City. Like, I get it, City, but you're up a goal. You had a chance to make it more and put the game away. Okay, you concede. Let me see that defense, right? These errors, I mean, they happen. Like we said, fortunate build up to certain goals. But you got to put the game away. But on the flip side, Liverpool played very well, and Nunez again coming on from the sub. And wasn't just Nunez. You could tell Liverpool came out. It was just a different mentality, and Van Dijk red card, like all the reasons to kind of bow out, take a point, and leave, or not get a point at all. And so it's huge for Liverpool. It's a huge win. This is somebody you're playing Newcastle, who's supposedly going to be competing with you for the top four. So you have that mental win, that edge over Newcastle, that we just did that in your house. So it's a huge win for Liverpool. I know I didn't really answer the question, but
No, you did. You
yeah,
did. And I think, honestly, I agree with you. I could see it being a Newcastle loss or Liverpool, and that's why I asked the question. But I agree with you. Liverpool win, because it's massive to do it away at St. James, like you said. Nunez getting his brace, like, off the bench to
it's huge.
in late fashion. Like, what else can this team not do? You start to, that ball starts to roll in that Liverpool camp. You know how they do. They get on a roll and then they just become unbeatable. So I think it's a Liverpool win. It means more to them to win that game. Any other highlights, Steve? I mean, we have your guy Awoniyi scoring again. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, he scores again, 3 goals on the season already. That's more than 100 times than Everton has, because Everton has 0. But yeah, 7 consecutive Premier League games. That's absolutely insane. He did it at the end of last year to keep them up. So highlights to Awoniyi. Same game Rashford played off of and left the what is that? What is that?
Voila! Oh my God!
Dang, man, you take that one away.
Well, Rashford, I mean, we've been saying this. Rashford's best position is off the left. I think
Yeah.
everybody or anybody who follows the Premier League or watches Manchester United at all knows that. But for some reason, Ten Hag was not playing him there so far this year. But he did in this game, and voila, he had his best game yet.
These are
There you
notes,
go.
everybody. We are prepared when we do this.
There was some questionable refereeing for the penalty that Rashford did get. But ultimately, I think it didn't matter at the end of the day. Man U definitely deserved the win. They really took it to Forest. And I really don't want to get into referee talk, because that just will drive me up a wall. West Ham beat Brighton 3-1 at the Amex, which
Huge.
Cole bet last week, and he said, I might be stupid, I might be crazy, but I think West Ham's going to win. And they absolutely smacked Brighton around at the Amex. It was a really good game from West Ham, with their goals coming from James Ward-Prowse, the new signing, Jared Bowen, and Mikel Antonio. Really good game from them. Like we mentioned earlier, Fulham drew away at Arsenal 2-2, which is an amazing result for them. And Aston Villa, my squad, beat Burnley 3-1. That brings us into match week 4, Steve. let's just start with Sheffield United versus Everton. Two teams that are expected to be at the bottom of the table this year. One of these teams will be forced to grab a point from this fixture. It doesn't seem like either of them really want it. So it'll be a game of who wants it more, maybe. Who wants 3 points? I think that's on the table as well. But the last time these teams matched up was in May 2021, back when Ancelotti was at the helm for Everton. It was a 1-0 win for Sheffield. Over the last 10 league matchups for these sides dating back to 1992, it's been complete parity. 4 wins for each side and 2 draws in the matchup. Steve, this is a relegation 6-pointer this early in the season. I believe so. Does either team have the edge in this match?
No. I really don't think so. Literally looking into this matchup over the years, I think their first matchup was in like the 1800s is what I was looking at, and it's like almost split down the middle of these results. I think Everton holds it by like 8 games over like literally 100 matches. So, I will say I'll give it to Everton, just because I big Sean Dyche podcast, never forget. So, and again, Danjuma showed signs of serious, promise, and Doucouré was all over the pitch. So if they can just put their chances away, like I said, Saw had 7 saves. They had 7 shots on goal, so that's positive if you want to spin their loss to Wolves that way. But I'm not confidently giving the edge to Everton, but it's who wants it more. One of these teams has to get a point.
Yeah. I mean, look, with these two teams, I think we're like grasping at straws here.
Yeah.
Like we're just, I don't really know who has the edge. I mean, Sheffield United's at home.
Yeah.
Does that play into that? Does that give them a big enough edge over Everton, who has a team that's been in the league? They have a little bit more league experience. Like you said, playing okay, I guess, like creating chances last game. I don't know. I'll give the edge to Everton in this matchup. Does that mean they'll win it, though? I don't know, dude. It's really a toss-up. I could see it going either way, and that's why neither of us bet on this result. Brighton versus Newcastle. This is a big matchup. Definitely one of the best of the weekend, as both teams look to rebound off defeats before the international break. Newcastle faced the potential of dropping a 3rd straight game in the season, which would be absolutely insane. Brighton have also scored the most goals in the league with 9 in 3 games. 8 goals did come against Wolves and Luton, though. Something to note. But we know how Brighton, how they can be. Is Newcastle heading to Brighton a little scared, Steve? And what can we expect from these two sides?
Yeah, I think we really see what Newcastle is made up of. More than any match last season, this whole Newcastle, new era, the new consortium money, this new team that's supposed to be in the top 4th of the table. I think we really find out what they're made of. Do they lose 3 straight games in a row? They go to Brighton, who dropped last week, but this is a team that's played great football all last season, and 2 out of the 3 games this year. I mean, they got smacked by West Ham, but West Ham's going out and beating Chelsea. So this Brighton team, I believe, does have the edge over Newcastle at home. Again, I'm really curious to see what Eddie Howe does. Do they change their tactics? Do they start maybe overthinking a little bit? Newcastle, that is. I don't know. But I do have Brighton as slight favorites at home against the Magpies, which is wild.
That is a little wild, but I think this game's going to be super fun. Probably the game of the weekend. Like I don't know. It's going to be electric. Yeah. It's going to be back and forth, end to end. We know how these two teams like to play. Newcastle is probably a little worried, honestly. They haven't played terribly, especially against City and Liverpool. Should have beat Liverpool. You're probably always going to lose to City. But they come up against a Brighton side who people don't really expect a lot from, which is funny, is because how well they played over the past couple seasons. But because of that, we know how well they play and how easily, seemingly easily, they can turn teams over. No matter who you are, they could drop in on any day and score 5.
Yeah.
So It's a big game. I agree with you. It's a really big game, sort of for both these teams to really see where are these teams at this season. Definitely tune into that one. I think this could be a draw. Newcastle away from home could be like a 2-2 draw. But if I had to bet a winner, I would say Newcastle. I just think
Okay.
they do have an edge. Um, Big matchup: Liverpool versus Aston Villa. Since returning to the Premier League, Villa have only beaten Liverpool once in that famous 7-2 smackdown during COVID. I'll never forget that game and where I was when I was watching it. Other than that, Liverpool has won 6 and drawn 1. That one draw was last year, 1-1 at the end of the season, if you remember, with a Salah to Firmino last minute goal.
Yeah.
Good game. But honestly, this is from my perspective. I will say it hasn't been all doom and gloom against Liverpool from an Aston Villa perspective. Most of the games have been relatively well fought, if my memory serves me correctly. Pretty close, especially last year. I think we lost 3-1 right after New Year's, but it was really open. It was really, really entertaining. But this one is at Anfield. So Villa will be looking for their first win away at Liverpool since 2012. Steve, do you think they have a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that Van Dijk red card. You know what that means? No Van Dijk. Coming from a Liverpool team that already doesn't really have that midfield to rely on defense, so I think Villa has the potential to play open football against Liverpool, who you see Trent. He's had his defensive woes. It seems like for a couple seasons now. Made a mistake last game. So I mean, the opportunities I definitely think will be there for Villa to score some goals. Then I think it comes back to Villa's what defense can hold up more. Villa's defense has been suspect at times already this season. But I think there will definitely be goals. I think there'll be over 3 goals, 4 goals total in the game, honestly. I think it's going to be very entertaining. They definitely have a chance. You hate going to Anfield, but after they sing their little song in the beginning, it gets crickets in there. So I think Villa will have their chance, absolutely. To at least walk away with a point, I kind of fancy them to get a draw.
Yeah. I think they have a great shot at some points here. They've played better in 2023 and this season compared to Liverpool, I think. It's just a really good team, and I think it's going to be a great matchup. Honestly, I think you were in my head because everything you were saying was what I was thinking. Definitely going to be 4 or more goals. It's going to be really, really entertaining. I would hate to see it I want to see that New Year's game where it was 3-1. I want to see a game that's really open like that, and hopefully it'll go Villa's way. I don't want to see the 1-1 draw we saw last year where Villa were really holding off and not going after it. But again, Anfield's a hard place to be. You have to get your points when you can. If Villa choose to play like that, I trust in Unai Emery. But Klopp is definitely going to want to turn up being back at home. So it's going to be a fun one. Definitely want to tune into if you're not watching the Brighton Newcastle game. But the biggest one of the weekend, and we'll stop here for a minute, Arsenal versus Manchester United. There have been at least 4 goals scored in the last 4 matchups between these two teams. Scorelines of 3-2 to Arsenal, 3-1 to Manchester United, 3-1 to Arsenal, and 3-2 to Manchester United. Obviously splitting the last 4 games. These two teams were tipped to be in the top 4 places again this year, but both of them not really having the hottest starts to the season, or I guess what was expected of them. Who do you think's had the better start to the season, Steve, so far, just on the looks of it?
I mean, I'd say Arsenal. I think they're blemish on their resume this last week against Fulham. Maybe Arteta trying to do too much, overcomplicate things. But I don't think United's look good. I think they could have, lost to Wolves. They ended up winning last minute. They end up coming back against Nottingham Forest. But then, so they're winning these games, and the words of my good friend Tyler Arnold are echoing in my head, saying, "Hey man, good teams find a way to win when they look bad," or something along those lines. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, they're points. I think you'd rather learn off of victories than learning off of losses. So it's really hard. I don't know how good Manchester United is, honestly. It's really difficult. To me, but I do think Arsenal again. I think Arsenal is the better team. I think Arsenal's the better team on paper for like the whole 11. They know what they have. They know what they did last season. They know what they're supposed to do. Man United still seems like a little bit of a mixed bag of who's going to even be in the starting 11 or what positions people are even playing. So that's why I'm giving the nod to Arsenal. Um, but who knows?
That's fair. You mentioned on paper. On paper, the odds are Arsenal minus 125 versus Manchester United plus 310. That is a very big gap between these two teams. Just pausing on that, do you think they're actually that far apart?
No, I don't. I don't know. I don't think so because United again under Ten Hag last year they found their stride. I think this beginning of the season is just always tricky. Um, Hopefully they abandon the Garnacho experiment and just play Martial at striker and Rashford on the left. So it's difficult for me to judge United off these first few games. But the answer I do not think they're that far apart. I don't think Arsenal has looked dominating really like a team that's gonna win the title or let alone challenge for the title once this season. I don't think they've looked that way once. So I'm still waiting on it. And I'm still waiting on Manchester United to also look like a team that I feel cemented into the top four. So both these teams not really showing that. So again, that's why it's so hard. But I don't think these teams are that far apart.
Yeah, well, I think again, this is going to be one of those games, sort of like the Brighton Newcastle, or even the Liverpool Villa game. Like these are going to be moments in the season where you say, this is where these two teams are at the moment. Like where are these teams at? Again, we don't really know. We're still trying to say, is Man United just not that good? Is Arsenal not as good as last year? But are they number 2 good? Like second in the league? Like we obviously know Man City's so good, but like where are these teams really at? Is there that big of a gulf between Arsenal and Manchester United this season? I don't know. You don't know. A lot of us don't know. If you have an opinion, let us know in the comments. But I just think Manchester United shows up to big games. From my experience and just from my just off the top of my head, I just think they show up. It doesn't matter where the game's at. They just like to play. You think of all those good Man City teams over the past couple of years. Manchester United has taken it to them a lot of times. It's, who knows what's going to happen. Do you think Man United have any sort of edge with like that dramatic comeback win against Forest going into the Emirates, or is it really just Arsenal playing semi-consistently at the moment and then trying to rise off, using this game as like a platform to jump maybe into a title challenge the rest of the season?
I mean, again, if I want to be very overreactionary right now, Man United won. Arsenal did not. I mean, Man United was down 2-0 in the matter of what felt like seconds against Nottingham Forest. And to come back and score 3 unanswered goals and win a match in the Premier League is impressive. And that's what they did. Arsenal did not. I mean, they drew. It's not a loss, but they drew against the Fulham team, and it's United will attribute it to. I mean, look at the game against Wolves. They found the goal, so they just seem to pop up with the goals, and they had plenty of chances against Tottenham. Plenty of chances against Tottenham.
Yeah, they did.
An immeasurable amount, and so different day. United's beating Tottenham that day, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, I like United's edge, I guess, if they're going to be looking for any sort of edge going into this game against Arsenal as well. So, I mean, these players have been there, done that. Bruno, Rashford, Casemiro. I mean, these are big personalities, and so curious to see Saka, Odegaard. I want to see these young guys really take it to United and play an open game. It's just going to be fun to see kind of an older group of players of class and these young guys that are about to supposedly kind of take over the league. So I want to see that next year from Saka. I want to see Odegaard take over a game like I know he can. Declan Rice show up.
Oh, massive game for Declan
Massive
Rice.
game for Declan Rice, rumored with United for years, it felt like. So, is he going to show up and make some big tackles, some big stops? Is he going to come up with a goal? So this is a game that you don't want to look away from. Biggest game so far, maybe of the season. I don't know. I like to be
Yeah.
dramatic. Why not? Yeah, biggest game of the season so far. So if you're not watching it, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
You definitely need to watch it. It's going to be great. Arsenal's going to try to possess the ball, and they're going to be dynamic in the offensive third, or going to try to be at least. Manchester United's defense, maybe they find something, right? Maybe they've become more solid, and this is the game that they figure it out because they haven't been super convincing this year so far. And Rashford playing off the left, counterattacking, like who knows? This game could explode into 3-2. It could also be an Arsenal blowout. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it's going to be fun. And that brings us to our MLS Fast Five. We're going to jump across the pond into the MLS Leagues Cup. I'm sure you've heard a lot about with Messi and Miami winning it, and Joseph, of course, who's actually on my back and right there. It's over. So now it's back to the real season where Miami no longer sit at the bottom, but they're still really down there. And we're coming into playoff territory. Teams are trying to make their runs to get into a playoff spot with this new MLS playoff format, which Cole and I talked about last week about how we need to look up the rules again because we forgot what the new format is because they change it seemingly every year. But really, really big game to start with here, Steve. Atlanta United, who's in sixth place in the East, versus first place Cincinnati. What's going to happen?
Oh man, you mentioned it at the top of the episode. United looking good in their past two games. They put 4 goals away in the back of the net in their last game. So I'll ride the hot hand, and I got United going 3-1 against Cincinnati. The MLS is such a crapshoot. You can't really rely off of form, in my opinion, when it comes to this league, because it's just built different. And that's why I have Atlanta United upsetting FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think they will win 2-0 as well. Keep the ball rolling, especially at home. That'll be a big statement win, especially three of those wins in a row. That'll be massive. Speaking of Inter Miami, in 14th place there versus Nashville, who's in 7th. This is funny because this is a rematch of the Leagues Cup final. Steve, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, Inter Miami have a new recruit. I believe he's of Argentinian descent, and his name's Lionel Messi, and he's just too good. I don't care. I'm gonna bet on Miami to win every game. I don't care that he's playing in. Um, so that's just yeah. Miami's gonna win. I got it 2-0. Messi brace or Busquets scores or maybe Jordi Alba. But yeah, it's gonna be a Miami win for me.
Yeah, Nashville didn't look that great against Atlanta United, and now they're going back to Inter Miami. I think they'll probably serve up another smackdown. Man, 2-0 sounds like a good scoreline. I'll go 3-0. How about that? Inter Miami putting up some goals. We'll move on to Houston, who's in 5th, versus Columbus, who's in 5th. On one in the West, one in the East. Columbus has been really hot, right? They just beat Cincinnati. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago now? In the Hell is Real Derby, and they won again this past weekend. Who do you have?
I'm going. I just changed it. Literally just changed it. I got Columbus going 2-1 over Houston. I've seen what this Columbus team could do to my beloved Atlanta United, and that's it. I think Columbus and Atlanta United to me are kind of teams in the same playing field. And after seeing what they could do, I just believe in Columbus. They're my team away from home. I hate.
They're my second team too.
I
I
almost got
guess.
kicked out of the Houston Stadium when I was like 19. So I'm never going to go for Houston. So I hope Columbus kill them. But I got 2-1 Columbus.
Yes, that's a story for another podcast. We should.
Time.
I think we've said that before. We'll need to talk about it at some point. Yeah, Columbus. I have to roll with them, right? I'll say a 1-0 Columbus win. Actually,
All right.
it's away at Houston, so. But the Crew keep it rolling. DC United versus Chicago, 10 versus 9. Both teams not great, but have an opportunity to make playoffs. I guess that's what they're hopeful for. What do you think's gonna happen?
Yeah, I got a 2-1 Chicago win here. Shakira being on the team has nothing to do with it. But yeah, I have Chicago winning 2-1 against DC.
DC United at home. I don't know. Well, I'm moving to Chicago. Should I just go for them? I really don't care. These two teams are not great. So not really looking forward to Chicago being my home team. Honestly, God, 2-0 Chicago. Shaqiri brace. I'll do it for you.
Let's go.
Seattle versus Portland in a rivalry game. Seattle's 3, Portland's 12. Not having the best of seasons. They just fired their coach 2 weeks ago, last week. I'm a guess you love Seattle, so I'm a guess you're gonna go with Seattle, but just let us know.
Yeah,
what are you going?
I got 4-2 Seattle in the oldest rivalry in MLS sports, the Cascadia. They have like their own niche little like rivalry up there in the Northwest. It's pretty fun. I think there's going to be a lot of goals. Portland's bad. I think they score 2, but I think Seattle scores 4.
Yeah, Portland definitely does like to turn up for these games, no matter how poor they are. I'm gonna go with a 2-1 Seattle win. I think it'll be pretty close. And that brings us to our last segment, our final segment, You Betcha. This goes without saying, we are amateur bettors. This is no way betting advice, but Cole and I last week hit the parlay. Hey. I bet the Wolves over at Everton, and Cole nailed his bet with West Ham beating Brighton. So hopefully we will replicate that again this week, Steve. So there are very, very high expectations coming from you. So please hit us with your lock this week.
Man, again, you guys, the odds you hit on, I think you got yours was plus 225 and Cole's was plus 475. So I'm going to go big here. I was going to go with the Nottingham Forest to win over Chelsea, but I'll dial it back to a draw. I got the draw at the Bridge. It's going to be plus 425 odds. Lock it in.
Wow, that is a big shout. Could happen. I think Nottingham Forest would be looking for their first win of the season?
I think so.
Second win. I think they beat Sheffield, maybe. I don't know. Whatever it is, it'll be a big result if it does happen. And I mentioned earlier, Liverpool, Aston Villa, pretty evenly matched. I think it's going to be a draw, and I would take that away at Anfield. Plus 33 for the draw at Anfield. Lock it in. That's it, folks. Thanks for joining the Supporter Section podcast today. We hope you enjoyed our time together. If you made it this far, you definitely owe us a like. And definitely subscribe if you have not already. We're going to keep updating you every week, talking about the Premier League, talking about the MLS, talking about other football-related stuff. And remember, the transfer window is closing, so there might be some crazy stuff to talk about next week. We will see about that. Definitely get into the comments and let us know your feelings. We had some good interactions. Was it last week, Steve? 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. Some people are getting in the comments, which we do really enjoy. So keep doing that. We appreciate that. I've been Brandon Paysnake. He's been Stephen Curl. Enjoy your week, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.